He's Howard Eibach, a former copywriter and creative director, and the author of 2 books on the creative brief.
And he's Henry Gomez, an ad agency strategist with over 26 years of experience. Together, we're the Brief Brothers. We love to talk about creative briefs, briefing, and advertising. We're back for another episode, Henry. Today, we're going to take on, this is one of those industry angst moments where we're going to look at a couple of articles, one written by John Long and was posted on LinkedIn. Another was from our buddy, George Tannenbaum, who's been a guest on our podcast, whose blog post that came out yesterday called The Ding Dongs of Doom caught my attention. It caught both of our attention. John Long's article was basically lamenting why so many people in the ad business hate advertising. In fact, I'm just going to take a look at the article titles to get it right here. We'll mention it more specifically in the post. John Long called his article on Muse by Clio, "What's with all the advertising leaders hating on advertising?" And of course, George's post was called The Ding Dongs of Doom. And what we want to do is kind of connect these because they're talking about some parallel ideas. John Long is basically saying some of these very senior folks in the marketing, on the marketing side, are really upset about the term advertising. They don't seem to like it. What George is talking about is
beyond not liking the term advertising. Some of the statements are like, I hate marketing, like marketing sucks. And I mean,
right.
It's not just the terminology issue, but
it's the industry itself. They've got issues with the industry itself. And George's argument, which is part of a longer piece where he discusses the evolution of how work has evolved from generalists, farmers in the 19th century, to more specialized work among guilds, to highly specialized technical work today, is that one of the results for the creatives in the ad industry business is that they become so specialized in data and user experience that they are disconnected to the actual idea generation, conceptual aspect of advertising. Both of these authors are talking about how the overall impact is that there is a disconnect to the industry, and it's resulted in this angst. John Long is saying that the senior mucky-mucks, the CEOs and CMOs for major brands, are disgusted with advertising. And George is talking about how us creatives, strategists, and others are disconnected to it. And I thought this would be a great topic for us to just kind of banter about, because we've talked about aspects of it in previous episodes. And I'm going to just start by saying I really connected with George. George is a fellow writer. And I think one of the reasons that he is spot on with his complaint that we've become so specialized in the impact and the result is because we as creatives, at least in some circumstances, really no longer feel a connection to and a responsibility to the brands that we are thinking about. We don't do the deep dives in the brand work anymore. And before I hit the record button, we were talking about how we both worked on car accounts. I worked on the Lexus account. You work on the Ford account. A test drive was just standard. You couldn't write about the product if you hadn't got into it, smelled it, touched it, got on the road and drove it. And I think this is what George is talking about. You've read both articles. You posted some thoughts on it on LinkedIn. What's your take on this, Henry?
So I think, we were talking about this, and we're trying to figure out if there was, you felt there was a connection between these two things, and they're admittedly two different things. And I do think that there is a connection. The connection is somehow that advertising as a profession has lost its glamour and it's lost its luster. We see it at the high end with what John Long wrote about, a CEO saying he hates advertising, to, the low end, which is employees that, are in advertising and don't even know why they're in advertising. And I think that it's true that the industry has lost its luster. And I think the sources of that are many. for example, let's talk about the idea of high level marketing executives and corporate executives saying that they dislike advertising and marketing. I think that's part of a greater kind of social distaste for capitalism and the market economy, in the sense that, you know, you're making stuff, you're selling stuff, right? And it's very, and I think that these people would like to be in their cocktail parties, be doing something of a higher level order to humanity or whatever, than just making stuff and selling stuff. um we've had this conversation before. I think that making stuff and selling stuff is the way a lot of people live. You know, it's the way a lot of people can put food on the table. it's
Right.
it's it's the way that we've been able to achieve modernity, and we don't live with dirt floors anymore, and we have the ability to have clean, you know, places to live and less disease and whatever. So I don't have a more that same moral qualm that a lot of these people, nor do I have the embarrassment about admitting that I work in marketing. I'm proud I work in marketing, but I think there's this new breed of corporate executive that doesn't want to admit that they work in something as lowly and dirty as making shit and buying and selling it, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I agree.
and
I
so
agree.
there's that aspect, and I think that George does have a point in the sense that, you know, I was fortunate enough to come up in a small agency where I had to learn all aspects of the agency business and really see how everything works together. But when you get fast tracked right out of school into one specific area within advertising, which is a specific area within marketing, it's very easy to lose sight of the forest from the trees, right? You're
Mhm.
only seeing that thing in front of you, that headline that you need to write, or that, you know, website that you need to design, and you don't see how it's part of a greater advertising ecosystem, um, which is necessary and important for brands to grow and for all of that growth that we were talking, good things to come from it. So I do think that they are related, and I think that George, as usual, had a really interesting take on it. And you know, it's a very thoughtful piece where he talks about, you know, how far we've come as an industry. You know, you look at, you get these emails. It's like, you know, we're SEO specialists, we're UX specialists, we're this, and those people are like really looking down a very narrow aspect of marketing communications. And I think there's still value in having a firm where it's all in-house, and you can have you know, a full service agency. Like, even we talked about a little bit off air how the industry has changed as we went away from the media commission model
Mhm.
to a fee for services model, right? So the media commissions now are very small, and the media agencies have spun off, and they're their own thing. They only plan and buy media, and we sell now, instead of selling media plans with which we get compensated to create advertising, now we sell hours, we sell creative hours, and that creates a commoditization, because agency A charges X amount for an hour, and agency B charges 10% less. If you're the person who buys the paper clips and the staplers, and you're responsible for hiring the ad agency, you're going to go with the low price offer. But the fact is, not all hours are the same. You know, a really good senior creative who's been proven, has a track record, has worked with, is has to be worth more than a junior who doesn't know anything. So
Yeah.
I think both of
Yeah.
these things, the special high specialization and of the industry, and also kind of this societal disdain for making and selling stuff, are contributing to uh, the fact that the industry isn't what it was. Like, you know, Mad Men has a lot of flaws as a show, right? I mean, it's a fantasy world, but it does depict a time when our industry was somewhat more glamorous than it is today. I mean, in real life, we had people like Bill Bernbach and Leo Burnett, and
Yeah.
they were titans. And it's really hard to kind of see who those people are today.
Yeah. I was thinking about an ad. Creatives pull out the ad books, the one shows, the CAs, and they look at ads as a way of learning about the business, but also finding inspiration. And I remember looking at an ad years ago. This would have been in the 90s. And the headline was something like, we don't solve, we don't cure cancer. We don't solve world peace. We're not trying to disarm the world. We make cocktail weenies. And it was just deadpan humor, but it spoke to, I don't think that ad could exist today. I don't think it would be written today, because they were taking pride in something as simple and small and insignificant as an aperitif, snack.
Mm-hmm.
And probably not, a cocktail weenie is not considered very healthy. I mean, it's a sausage.
Well,
but it was a funny ad that I thought reflected the times that wouldn't translate well today. And I think that says a lot about this attitude that we see among a certain group of people in our industry that have this anti-capitalist, anti-sell disdain for what it is that we do. And it's kind of sad, because one of the things that I had posted when I looked at this article that John Long wrote, I wrote a long response to it by saying I had applied for a job at a company in Los Angeles that specialized in doing beautiful 6 and 8 color collateral for luxury automobiles. That's all they did. It was a collateral. It's a well-known agency in Long Beach. The creative director brought me in, and he said, what I'm really looking for is what he called a gearhead. This is a guy who ate, breathed, slept, did nothing but love cars. He knew cars upside down, inside out, everywhere. I said, that's not me. But what you'll get with me is someone who loves the process of figuring out what the problem is and finding a solution to sell the car. I may not be the expert in cars, but I'll find a way to make people care about the cars because I care about the process of advertising. That's what I loved about this business. It appealed to both sides of me, the left and the right brain. We've talked about how that's kind of overblown. It's a simplistic way of describing, creatives think about the world in one way and marketers and non-creatives think about it another way. And, my background was in direct marketing. And that's my segue into saying that even in the mid 90s, I got pressure when I took my book into an ad agency, and the creative director said, you've got a lot of stuff here that's in direct marketing and a lot of stuff that's branding. You got to choose, because otherwise your creative directors are going to be confused and say, what are you? Are you a branding copywriter or a direct marketing copywriter? And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to choose. I thought going to direct marketing would be more specialized. There wouldn't be as many good copywriters in that field. And I built a nice career for myself. But even, 25 years ago, 20 some odd years ago, even then, pressure for specialization was rampant in our business.
Yeah. Like for him, it wasn't good enough that you just be a good copywriter, with the ability to stretch your wings and it was interesting while you were saying the anecdote about, the gearhead thing is what I've found, working across 6 different agencies in a bunch of different categories, is that I become passionate about the brands and the industries that I work in as a result of working in them. Of course, I wasn't passionate about the McDonald's brand before I worked on it. When I started working on it, I met the people and I learned the history, because again, I'm a big history guy, right? And you say, wow, this is amazing. And so I'm like, maybe I'm just easily influenced, but I bleed for the brands that I work on. And even today, I launched the CVS pharmacy brand into the Hispanic market in the US, I don't know, almost 20 years ago. And I still only use I still prefer CVS to Walgreens. I'm loyal to them because I know their story. I know their CEO is a pharmacist. So you know, I agree with you. I think that the specialization. The other thing is, and you touched on it, was these executives, right? That don't want to be associated with advertising and marketing. It's because they're business people. They're not necessarily artistic people or people that are in the idea business. When you're in the
And that's an
idea
old
business,
complaint. That's an old complaint,
when when
sadly.
when you're in the idea business, you can't help but like advertising, because advertising is a pure expression of ideas and the power of ideas. And your cocktail weenie story made me remember that right before I left the can, I toyed with the idea of making a T-shirt that said "Not here to save the world." And
That would have you would have upset a lot of people for
well,
saying that.
I told a couple people while I was there, and they both said that would have been great. Like they were like, so I think that it's I think there are some people that think like us, that would like to see a return to splendor, if you will, of the advertising industry, and that are proud of having worked in the industry. But there's a vocal, segment that is, the ones that are the ones that poo poo, and you gotta kind of be self-hating to to say you hate the industry you work in.
Yeah, and I'll close on by saying that I agree with you and I didn't really realize this until you brought it up. I'm not so much loyal to Lexus. I worked on Lexus a long time ago. And I've never owned a Lexus. I'm kind of a cheap guy. I don't like spending more than 25,000 bucks on a car. So I'll never get a Lexus unless it's maybe second, pre-owned. But I still feel a disappointment and an anger when I look at Lexus Creative today. And I've talked about this before. I work for Tom Cordner, and Tom Cordner and I were not buddy buddies. He didn't think all that much of me, but I learned a few things from him. But he's the guy who wrote that line, the relentless pursuit of perfection. And today, the tagline is experience amazing. And it just makes me cry. So it's not quite the loyalty that you're talking about for a brand that you've worked on, but it's a version of it. And I get that.
You still
And
have
I
a
think
soft
that's
spot. You have a soft spot
exactly,
for the
exactly.
brand, and you want to see them do good work, and you want to.
Because I was part of it. I was part of it. And you and I share this pride in our industry because it attracts a certain kind of person. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody's cut out for doing it. As I said in my post to John Long's article, I'm probably never going to make it into the Hall of Fame, but that doesn't mean I don't feel pride for the work that I've done and the sales that I've been able to help the brands I've worked on accomplish and achieve. It's been a great career for me, and I love it. So
I just had a flashback of a memory, like, I don't know how many years ago. My kids are 14 now; they're twins, but I think my kids were in first grade, and I participated in Career Day at their elementary school. And it was interesting because I was assigned a room, and then they would bring the kids from the different classes in to me, and I think I had to give like 3 presentations. But the interesting part about it was they weren't all first graders, so like it was a career day for the whole school. So I got like 1 5th grade class, 1 3rd grade class, and like 1 1st grade class, and they rotated through. When my daughter's class came in, she had no idea I was coming. So when she walked into the room, she had this look on her face, like she was like so proud, like, oh, my daddy's here. And I don't think at that point she even really understood what I did. But I had come with, a DVD with a bunch of commercials I had worked on. And and there were things like McDonald's, which they were very much aware of. And so the look of pride, I was proud to say that I had participated in this advertising, and the look on her face was like one of total pride, and like, hey, that's my daddy. So I just wish that for the next generation of advertising people.
I agree with you 100%. Good stuff, Henry.
Good stuff, Howard.
He's Henry Gomez.
And he's Howard Eibach. And together we're the Brief Brothers. Till next time, stepping all over each other. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.